One of the most difficult things about doing tshuva is the fact that we make a mountain out of a molehill, unfortunately. We think about the responsibility of doing tshuva and how difficult it may be, and sometimes it becomes overwhelming. Even when we read the Pashup Pshat in the Rambam writes, Umaya tshuva, what's tshuva? Sheyazav achayte chetay, that a person should leave his chet, v'yasirenu mimachshavtay, and get rid of it from his mind, v'yigmar b'libay shelo, and he should come to the conclusion that he will never do this again. And then, of course, after that, a person has to have charata, v'chein yisnachem al she'avar. And then the Rambam ends off by saying, "V'yoyed olav yedei talumais shelo yoshuv lezeh hachet la'olam." It has to come to the point where even Hashem will testify about you that you won't go back to do this sin again. When you read that, that sounds daunting. That sounds intimidating. Can I ever get to the level where I know I'm not going to sin again, and I can prove that Hashem is not going to know also that I'm never going to sin again? This feels very overwhelming. I'll tell you the following story that should try to make this a little bit easier upon us. There's a fellow named Reb Shlomo Hoffman, Dr. Hoffman, Rabbi Shlomo Hoffman. He was a master psychologist, a Talmid Chacham, lived in Eretz Yisrael, and he actually was in charge of the court system rehabilitation program. He would be there to decide and make an evaluation of every criminal, if he could be rehabilitated, and whether he should have a jail sentence or whether he should have some other rehabilitative program. And it was interesting, he did this in the secular world, even though as a Haredi person, he was firmly rooted in the Haredi world. And he writes that when he was studying in Yeshiva in Chevron, when he was a Bacher, and the Rosh Yeshiva at the time was Reb Chatzkel Sarna, and it was a serious Tshuva, and he was walking through the halls, and Reb Chatzkel Sarna saw him very serious, and he says to him, "Reb Shlomo, what's the matter? Why are you so serious? What's going on here?" He says, "Well, it's a serious Tshuva. I'm thinking in Tshuva, and it's a very serious time." He says to him, "Yeah, but there's no mitzvah that you don't have to smile." He says, "Well, how can I smile? It says in the Rambam, that the one who knows all secrets will testify about the person, whether he's going to do tshuva again. How can I be confident in that? I have to be very serious, and I have to work on myself." And Reb Chatzkel Sarna says to him in very simple words, "Who says we paskin like this Rambam?" And Reb Shlomo was incredulous. He didn't know what he was saying. And Reb Chatzkel says, "We paskin like Rabbeinu Yoina." Rabbeinu Yoina says that the chiyuv of tshuva around the Yomim Neiroyim is to be yisyatzev al derech hatov, to be standing on the right path. Meaning that you're in the process of doing tshuva. You've joined the road towards recovery. But it doesn't mean you've recovered completely. In fact, he tells him a story that was based on something that Rabbi Yisrael Salanter said, a mashal, that if a person was standing at the entrance to Yerushalayim, and he wanted to get to Bnei Brak, and he asked somebody, "How long is it to Bnei Brak?" And the fellow tells him, "It's 60 minutes. So he starts driving, 60 minutes pass. He's not in Bnei Brak. Another 60 minutes passed. It's 120 minutes since he was standing in Yerushalayim. He still doesn't see Bnei Brak. All of a sudden, he rolls down the window and he asks somebody, "Where am I?" He says, "You're in Mitzpeh Rimon. You're in the south of the country." He says, "I'm not in Bnei Brak." Bnei Brak is in the central center of the country. You're in the south. He says, "What did I do wrong?" He says, "Well, when you left Yerushalayim, you made a left turn instead of a right turn." At that moment, said Rabbi Yisrael Salanter, is what we call Yisyatzev al derech hatov. Right now, he's finally on the right path. He may be 180 minutes from Bnei Brak, 120 from Yerushalayim, and another 60 to Bnei Brak. But he's far better off than the guy he was when he was standing at the entrance to Yerushalayim and figuring the wrong way to go. Yisyatzev al derech hatov, when it comes to tshuva, means we just know what we did wrong and we find our way back to the path towards recovery, towards repenting, towards returning. But we can't accomplish everything at once. How could a person even think that it would take him a month or a week or whatever it might be, and he could change himself completely? No one can do that. That's not human. No one can do that. And so the idea is that when it says in the Gemara, Rabbi Yisrael Salanter says that Yom Kippur is mechaper lashavim, those people that are doing tshuva now, which means oisin tshuva in the present tense. They're in the process. They're on the road towards it. That's what Yom Kippur is mechaper. It doesn't say those that were asu tshuva, that did already tshuva, or elu sheshavu, those that already did tshuva in the past. Our role, our responsibility is not to accomplish the whole thing during these days. So as we say slichas, let's try to focus on one thing. What is the right path? And let's just stand at the beginning of it. And if we do, Mitzvah Hashem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will provide the kapara that Yom HaKippurim is supposed to provide for those that are ois in tshuva, in the process of it. Yisyatzev al derech hatayv. That isn't the most daunting task. We'll have a lifetime, Mitzvah Hashem, to change ourselves. But right now, let's just get back on the path towards recovery.